Welcome to Creating Disney Magic with Lee Cockerell. Lessons in leadership, management, and customer service. You can create magic too. I'm your host, Jody Mayberry, and of course, you expect by now, Lee Cockerell is with us, the retired Executive Vice President of Walt Disney World. Hi, Lee.
Hey Jody, good to see you, man.
Good to see you
Uh,
too. And we have a rare occurrence. We have a guest, a new friend of ours, someone we've recently discovered and absolutely love him. It's Greg Archbold, the author of Fail, Fight, Finish. You're going to love Greg the same way we do. Welcome to the show, Greg.
Hey,
yeah,
Lee, Jody, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. Huge fan of, obviously the Disney situation. So you guys are just awesome to have me on the show, and I look forward to chatting with everybody.
so tell us about that book. Why'd you write it?
Well, why I wrote the book was as you can tell, I love talking, and it was a goal that I had. I said I've got to put this stuff on paper. I left my last corporate job and decided to go into business for myself. So I literally sat down, let my fingers do the talking, and I just wrote down all the leadership lessons over the period of where I messed up and how I was able to fight through those things, and decided to just put it on paper and see what happens.
How'd you start out in your career and your working life?
Well, I spent 33 years in the Army. The first half of my career I spent as an enlisted emergency medicine guy. And then I went to officer candidate school and transferred into the military police corps. And then I finished off my career and I went to work in corporate in the asset protection realm. And I decided that, I needed to do something a little bit more for myself. And I decided to pursue public speaking and book writing and teaching workshops at companies because I'm just truly passionate about leadership. I think, as you well know, it's not about a title, it's about your influence.
Absolutely, and I tell you, it's those lessons are so badly needed, especially with young people talking to high school students, college students, kids right out of school that don't know what to do with their life. And hopefully that we get into these schools, and I hope you're doing it too, and other places, and get these kids to wake up before it's too late. And I talk to a lot of juniors and seniors, just kind of preparing them for it's life is going to change after you turn 18, and you got to be careful not to make any mistakes in those leadership issues. And what are the main things you focus on?
I focus on, I try to bring, because the big thing is a lot of companies don't want to invest financially into leadership training because a lot of companies, we take good people and we promote them to these leadership positions, but we don't teach them conflict resolution. We don't teach them how to give feedback to struggling team members. So I try to focus on number one, why do you want to lead? A lot of people, if you want to lead for the money, I tell them they're in it for the wrong reasons. The second big thing that I try to tell people is you got to give your team purpose. If they don't know why they're doing what they're doing, then they're never going to have buy-in and believe in what it is that you're trying to get them to do. The
Is that
second
what
thing
is
is
that what drove your army career, your purpose, understanding deeply?
I think when I had good leaders and they just really drove me to say, hey, this is why I want you to do this. Even though a lot of times, I'll be honest, I didn't like it. But when I had leaders explain the why behind the work, it just made things so much easier.
Yeah, good. Nice to hear that. Yeah. And you go ahead. You said your second reason was what?
I think presence. And I know we have this environment now where we're doing a lot of remote working, but I think presence is the key because it's, people trust what they can see. So if leaders aren't seen by their teams, then they're going to have a hard time. And I think the other thing about presence is it dictates what is important. There's a lot of leaders who hey, we have these, like a lot of organizations have safety meetings, right? How many leaders actually go to the safety meeting? What message are you sending when you don't send people to the safety meeting? I know what
Exactly.
the message you're sending is: safety is not important. So
Yeah.
if you have a bunch of senior leaders, they need to attend these things. And the other thing, which is really easy for me, is passion. If you are not excited about the days ahead, you are not going to have a team that's excited about the days ahead. So I think if you do those things, I think most leaders, and none of that stuff will cost a leader a dime, I think their culture can change drastically.
How do you think? How's the military doing, and the last corporate job you had, in finding the kind of people that you just described, and hanging on to them?
For me, I think I think the transition. I think one of the hardest parts about transitioning from the military into the corporate space was just really learning a new language. Everything from what is leadership development, what are all these different terms, because I spent 33 years in the military, and the language is just different. So once I reached out and I had good people who, I'm a big cold caller, so I reach out to people and I say, hey, can you help me learn some things? So I had some good mentors who I reached out to in the corporate space who helped me. The second thing is, as I transitioned out and I started hiring people to come into the corporate space, the biggest thing that I had to get them is to get them to understand that, hey, I am not here just to bring you on. I'm here to get you from here to here. And once they realized that I wasn't just, hey, I'm going to put you to work and then I'm going to forget about you, but I'm going to
Yeah.
put you to work and get you on board.
Yeah, that's great. That's one of the biggest problems right now is everybody has trouble keeping people because they don't feel like they matter, and they get hired and that's the last time you see your boss.
Yeah, well,
So
and we just talked about the presence, Lee. If you're not a person like, and I understand the senior vice president is not going to be seen by everybody every day. I get that, but there are ways leaders you can schedule one-on-ones with people. If it's a employee's birthday month, schedule a Zoom call with you know, 20 of the, people in your company just to say, hey, just wanted to say happy birthday. Tell me what's going on. That will do wonders because people say, again, people care.
they do. One thing we talk a lot about is somebody said, how do you communicate with leaders? And we said just what you said. Get to know them and let them know you and know what you believe in and make sure you tell them what you believe in. And then that goes a long way. Sorry, I'm going to cough myself to death here. But yeah, that's great. And we are, I think, really trying to teach everybody how to be clear and candid and straightforward and tell the truth. Because if you're not performing, a lot of people don't want to have that discussion with somebody. They just want to let it go and hope it gets better. How do
I
you
think
feel
it's
about
it's
that? Clarity.
well, it's very difficult to have difficult conversations, but that's why you're in charge. I on one of your episodes, you were talking about, how do you get rid of someone who is I want to say it was somebody who was bringing the company a lot of money, and there was a decision if you were going to fire them or not fire them. I was in a position one time where I was doing corporate investigations, and this person was making the company a lot of money, but they might have been doing a little bit of, a
A little
little,
bit making money for
yeah, they might have been
themselves.
doing a little bit of kickback, Lee. They might have been doing a little kickback. And it was almost like I had to convince the decision makers to say, hey, you can't, because once you tolerate something that is below your standard, you have just made that the new standard for everybody else in your organization. So
Sorry.
I know it's difficult to do, but I think, you have to be direct even when it's uncomfortable.
Even when he gave you most of the money, he just took a little bit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but yeah,
Now,
definitely.
we talk about that a lot. Make being leaders being able to actually deal with the hard things, because that's really the biggest problem most leaders have is make those last two hard things, firing somebody or making a hard decision, and those are the two things that probably describe who you are, and that's how you get results in your personal life and business life. Hard things are hard. And so yeah, that's good. And what
Greg,
else?
you and I.
Show us the
Oh,
book too in a second.
Oh, okay. Here we
Yeah,
go.
fail, fight, and finish. All right, got it.
Yeah, you could find it on Amazon. You can also order it through my website at go figure GregoryArchbold.com.
There you go. Thank you for that. Yeah.
Greg, you and I have something kind of in common. You were military police, so law enforcement in the military. I was a law enforcement park ranger, so we both have law enforcement experience. And you talk about why leadership breaks down under pressure. And I feel as law enforcement officers, we got to see leadership under pressure in a way most civilians never get to,
Very true.
because there's a big difference in leadership behind a desk, even leadership walking around versus leadership under high stakes pressure. Have you found that what you learned as a law enforcement officer on what makes leadership break down under pressure, did that apply or does it apply in the corporate world as well?
Oh, it most definitely does. I think because every organization will have that one thing that goes wrong. And how you deal with that. And one of the things, half of my career, I was in emergency medicine. And I had a boss that used to say, you got to take your pulse before you can take the patient's. And the big thing is, your team is watching how you respond in chaos. You have to stay calm. I worked in a warehouse one time where a forklift hit a water pipe and it busted and water was it was a mess. And everyone seemed to be panicking. And I said, no one's dying. Yes, we're going to lose some product, but the calmer we stay, and we just directed people. And I didn't know at the time, but there was a senior VP in the building that came up to me later and said, how did you stay calm? I said, if I panic, then the team panics. You
That's
know,
so.
I tell another quick story. I went to the gym and a guy passed out, like CPR pass out. And there was people just staring at this guy and no one wanted to touch him. And I literally had to get some strangers and be like, you go do this, you go do this, you go do this, come help me. And thank God that the guy lived and, he was lived to tell the story. But sometimes you just need to be, as the leader, you need to stay calm, but you also need to be able to give direction.
I made sure my wife learned CPR. I, I told her if I ever go down, call 911 before she starts, so just in case she doesn't know what she's doing.
Yeah.
So yeah,
My
that's
wife's
true.
my wife's a nurse, Lee, so I'm set in that area.
Well, that's good. Let's hope she takes care of you and doesn't just walk away.
But did that answer your question, Jody?
Yeah, it
Yeah,
sure
that's
did.
right there. Absolutely. And we always talk about always be thinking, prepared for something to go wrong. And then when it does, you've already prepared your mind that if it does, I'll get involved. And a lot of people are shocked when there's a fire or an accident or they haven't thought about this could happen to me and be ready. And yeah, I think that always thinking about it. And safety, as you said, I mean, at Disney, safety is people show up at the meetings and the senior people are involved and even run the meetings often because we believe that safety is the most important thing for our guests and for our cast members, because if you don't feel safe physically and psychologically,
Right.
it goes downhill pretty bad. And at Disney, you can have some pretty bad accidents and pretty bad issues. And so I don't know why more. And I think in corporate life, they need to be thinking more about psychological safety. Is the leader making everybody more nervous than ever, not being supportive? It's probably worse than physical safety. Yeah.
Well, that's the other piece is about making, especially about the safety portion, is that you've got to make your team feel valued. And value is probably the next best part, because if you got to listen to them. You don't always have to agree, but
Right.
they deserve for you to listen to them, and never use the worst words in leadership. Because I said so.
Yeah.
If you ever tell an employee because I said so, you have just destroyed your organization, because people will just feel like, oh, well, they don't really care. They're not creating that psychological safety that we talked about.
When you said that, I thought back about my mother.
Well, we grew up in a different generation, Lee. We grew up in a different generation where,
Yeah.
mom says, hey, no cookies. Why? Because I said so. And that
And
was
she
it.
also used to say, "How many times do I have to tell you?" And I was with a guy the other day, and he said his boss said, "Are you a control freak at work, a control manager?" He said, "No, I'm not a control person. I listen to everybody a lot. I listen to everybody, and I care. And then I make a decision. Sometimes they may think that is control, but I've listened to everybody. I don't make it until I've heard from everybody." And I think, that sometimes leadership gets misunderstood
Right.
uh, by people who are not thinking about it like that way. Because one of the biggest problems is people not making decisions. You're sitting around waiting, 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 waiting. Yeah.
Well, it's always better to make a wrong decision than to make no decision.
I don't know. I'm married 58 years. I might not be right. I'm not. It could be, but I guess it
Hey
is.
Lee,
'Cause I made a lot of
I
bad.
got space on the couch if you need a place to stay if you get kicked out of there.
Yeah, she didn't leave, so I guess you're right. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
you have
absolutely.
heard Lee and Greg talk about problems that can go wrong and anticipation, thinking through what could go wrong. That applies to your vacation as well, because there could be so many things that go wrong. But one thing you can do right is call our friends at Magical Vacation Planner, because then they are there to help you with anything. Any of the problems that come up, you just call them. You don't have to worry about it. Reach them at 407-442-2694. And speaking of where we can find people, Greg, where can we find out more about you and what you're up to, and just keep up to date with what's going on?
I think the two easiest ways are, you can find me at GregoryArchbold.com. That's my website. You can see, you can book coaching sessions. You can purchase copies of the books. You can see a couple video clips of speeches and things that I've done. Or if you're not that person, you can just type Gregory Archbold, and you can check me out on LinkedIn.
I think we heard that somebody in your family or a relative told you about us. Is that true?
Yes,
Who, who was that?
my daughter, Amy Hammer, did a internship. She was one of the college students that came and worked for a period of time. So she's a huge fan of Disney. And when I told her that I was going to be on the show, I think she was a little bit more excited than I was.
What's her name?
Amy Hammer.
Amy. Okay. Hi, Amy. We're glad you brought Gregory along and introduced us, and so we got to know him. Thank you. All right, Jody, it's all yours, buddy.
All right. Well, Greg, it's been great to have you on the show. I'm glad your daughter told you about us. Lee and I love the college program. They do such good work there, and your daughter is going to have experience that will stick with her the rest of her career after being in the college program. That's going to be great. And if you've enjoyed what you've heard from Greg, well, follow along. He told you where to find him, and the content he puts on LinkedIn is great. His short videos, you'll get a lot out of that. So follow up with Greg. And if you want to get in touch with myself or Lee, Lee's at leecockerell.com. I'm at jodymayberry.com. Until next week, go out and create magic for others.